He wants to know about any divisive practices in schools and if students' fundamental rights are being violated. Georgia's Speaker of the House, David Ralston, is vowing to reform mental health treatment.
I am tired of telling desperate, hurting families that we have no treatment options available.
Ralston, in a rare move, is introducing a bill this session to revamp mental health treatment across the board, to readdress how the state offers services to families and how mental health is addressed by law enforcement.
Georgia is a great state. Passage of this landmark bill will also mean we are a good state.
One key component mentioned by Ralston is adding treatment facilities. Ralston says lack of treatment has led many families with little to no options. I'm Scott Kimbler.
Coca-Cola and Molson Coors are teaming up for a new line of alcoholic beverages. The two companies announced Coors will be launching the Simply Spiked Lemonade variety pack this summer. Simply Spiked Lemonade is set to be sold in 12-can variety packs as well as 24-ounce single cans. The flavors include strawberry lemonade, watermelon lemonade, blueberry lemonade, and classic lemonade. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
Now, your chance to win $1,000. Just enter this nationwide keyword on our website. Happy. That's happy. Enter it now.
This report is sponsored by the new Mark Moss Show podcast. Want to learn more about cryptocurrency in the new year? Check out the Mark Moss Show podcast. Each week, Mark Moss, an investor, crypto expert, and host of the popular YouTube series, shares his knowledge as a true entrepreneur. Listen to the Mark Moss podcast on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Let's help make sure COVID doesn't take another mom,
another wife,
another papa.
Let's not lose any more favorite uncles
or lifelong friends.
Vaccines help prevent severe illness and death from COVID.
And the broken hearts they leave behind.
We can do this. Find vaccines near you at vaccines.gov. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Stay tuned and stay informed with News Radio 690, KTSM, an iHeart radio station.
In 2007, Marine First Lieutenant Travis Manion was killed in Iraq after saving his wounded teammates. Travis's legacy lives on through the words he spoke before his final deployment. If not me, then who? Words that today fuel the spirit of Travis Manion Foundation. And through TMF, these words can live in you too. Show the world what you're made of, because character is invisible until it's not. Find out how you can strengthen the character of your community alongside empowered veterans, families of the fallen, and inspired civilians at travismanion.org.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone?
Do flowers have best friends?
I don't know. Hey, look.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. Be a part of the show by calling 915-544-KTSM, 915-544-5876, or comment online on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for joining us, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social pages, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or Twitch, Andrew J. Polk. Either of those names, most of those places, you're going to find us as we continue our mission to have live local talk radio back in the borderland and to have that local conversation about the issues that affect us here, because no one else is going to talk about the things that affect us here at home the way we are. That's our purpose. That's our mission. That's what we're doing every Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. right here on News Radio 690 KTSM. So, few things on the docket for us here today. Looking at some shifting circumstances when it comes to the economy, both in terms of the continuing supply, some local reporting going on, that special report out from our news partners over at KFOX 14 and CBS 4 Local, focused on that, but even more swirling issues, including an apparent blockade, for lack of a better term, happening on the northern border. We'll get a little bit into that and what that might mean here for trade, transit, travel, all those fun T words that we talked about a lot, but also going to be talking about some mail-in ballot implications here in Texas and what some candidates are doing, and particularly in light or maybe not even regard to the new laws. Also got that Supreme Court vacancy that we can impending that we just can't ignore because of the impact that will certainly have here. But more specifically, a guest today going to be the founder of Texas Latino Conservatives and the Leadership Latino program that is going to be coming to town this weekend. You may have heard them talking a little bit about it on some of our air during the commercial breaks, but we had this interview set up to talk about what they're going to be doing during that event that is going to be happening here in El Paso, the importance of being involved in the political process at all levels, not even just one facet of it, but multiple, and frankly, then how to do it that comes through this. So those are some of the things we're going to be talking about here today, taking phone calls a little bit later in the hour as we usually do, but pretty much the best way to comment throughout the show, as Leroy Chuck perfectly demonstrates there over on the Facebook page, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, is by going to the socials. You can do that throughout the show because it's where the Skeptic Squad lives and makes a lot of interesting commentary happen over there. So something that I was just mentioning is it's almost kind of hard to pin down because there's not a whole lot necessarily of reporting going on to it, but seeing a lot more coming out, and the impacts from this, particularly up north, could be very, very interesting. That there are various reports of some tens of thousands of trucks on the Canadian border, north, in the, from the Canadian side of it specifically. Some estimated, yet tens of thousands are the best rough estimates. I've seen pictures kind of bearing that up, purporting to be right. It's, again, kind of hard to track this down because it's still developing now, but it seems to be coming out of the response to that whole cross-border trade vaccine requirements that we've talked a little bit about, what has now come into place as of this past weekend, actually, if I'm not mistaken, January 22nd, requiring there for non-resident transit, basically. So this would include the truck drivers that are not U.S. citizens coming in here to trade things, be required to be vaccinated. This is the step forward-ish as it came out of the whole no non-essential travel coming from the border that we had serious issues and had a lot of impacts on local businesses here for sure. So this appears to be, as that has evolved, this is now becoming an increasing issue. Again, hard to pin down exactly what's going on with it, but a lot of social media posts, some pages like Convoy to Ottawa 2022, but again, focus primarily, the stuff that I'm seeing anyway, on protest around this issue. So what that could then mean for us down here, that's a little unclear. But as supply chain issues continue, certainly won't do anything good, particularly within the, lumber industries, construction industries, those kind of issues, probably going to be not a great time. That was one of the primary focuses, if you recall, of the whole USMCA realignment was around trade and tariffs on those materials. So I don't expect this will do anything great. In fact, looking at a video here right now, pretty sure I'm seeing a truck that looks like it has stacks and pallets of that plastic wrapped lumber on it. And yeah, so that's evolving right now. This had come out, seen notices of it in previous weeks of some of the truckers essentially wanting to blockade ports, but maybe not that far. But this is reaching a level that it's well worth paying attention to, but it's hard to find anything concrete about this, so still kind of developing. So that's one of the things I'm keeping an eye on anyway. John Browsleton saying, create a no man's area where drivers from each country can exchange trailers. I'm not sure. Well, that might technically solve it, but I'm not sure that will necessarily solve the gripe and the issue with the basically protest going on that it comes down to with this. So I don't know if that has been suggested. I think there has been some previous commentary within our comment section here about that might not be possible because it still involves border crossing in some way, shape, or form. In any case, a lot of talk happening about other international issues. This one hitting pretty close to home when you start thinking about the things that come from Canada and what the impact could be here. So again, one of the things we're looking at and keeping our eye on here today. One other interesting one, as we're talking about elections and the lead up to it, is that, of course, some of the Texas laws that have come out recently out of this last legislative session had a lot to do with the methods of voting and what is or isn't allowed, including adding legal penalties for doing things like sending out unsolicited mail-in ballot applications. Now, as the Texas Tribune notes here today, that Republican congressman from Texas, Dan Crenshaw, his office is sending mail-in ballot applications to voters on his lists, reported to be something that includes a simply sign, stamp, and mail it, and then be sure to vote for Dan Crenshaw. So kind of along the lines, I would suppose, of that mailer that one of my contacts receive, encouraging you to make sure you're registered to vote and then go out and vote. But this one specifically from Texas Democrats, but this one specifically for the mail-in voting ballot, the application actually for it. So curious to know what y'all have to think about that. And keep that in mind as we head into, again, our interview for today. Going to be talking about voter activation happening in our town with the Texas Latino Conservatives and Leadership Latino. That coming up, if you haven't heard it on our air already, this coming weekend. Can still register for it, but there might be some space filling up here. But we'll be talking about that more in this coming segment as well. So due for that first break here already, you are tuned in to Talk El Paso, airing here live on News Radio 690 KTSM. A lot more we're going to be getting to. Yes, we've got that Supreme Court nomination pending at this point. We'll get into that more. But again, coming up next, local voter activation. What does it mean? What does it take? And everything involved with it. So back here in a minute with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
On the 10 eastbound, injury accident at the Paisano Drive exit. I-10 eastbound at Eastlake. Crash off to the right, blocking the shoulder. The 10 eastbound is slow with a 5-minute delay downtown from Campbell exit to Copia. A crash with medical crew on the scene. Montwood westbound at Saul Kleinfeld. Another wreck at Wrestler and Belvedere. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by the new Mark Moss Show podcast. Want to learn more about cryptocurrency in the new year? Check out the Mark Moss Show podcast. Each week, Mark Moss, an investor, crypto expert, and host of the popular YouTube series, shares his knowledge as a true entrepreneur. Listen to the Mark Moss podcast on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Susan, it's so great to finally be able to get together again. Oh, it sure is. And I really appreciate you picking up the bill. I'm happy to. I've got the extra cash. Since we've all been driving so much more again, I've been using Get Upside, the free gas app that pays you cash back for every gallon of gas you buy. Wait a minute. Are you saying you actually get paid cash when you buy gas with the Get Upside app? Yes, up to 25 cents a gallon. Cash back every time I buy gas. Does that actually add up to anything? Some months I make $200 to $300. Wow, that's serious extra cash. I'm downloading the free Get Upside app now.
Download the free Get Upside app now in the App Store or Google Play to save up to 25 cents a gallon when you buy gas. Use promo code GOOD for a 25 cents a gallon bonus on your first tank. That's up to 50 cents a gallon on your next fill-up. You can cash out anytime to PayPal or an e-gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Get Upside app and use promo code GOOD for a 25 cents a gallon bonus on your first tank. That's code GOOD.
iHeartRadio Earth knows small changes can make a big difference. Want to reduce your food waste? Embrace your freezer. From bread to meat and even cheese, most foods can be frozen and cooked later. Plus, a full freezer uses less electricity. Brought to you by iHeartRadio Earth and the National Environmental Education Foundation. To find more tips for smarter, sustainable living or to take action in your own community, go to iHeartRadio.com/Earth.
Do you promise to love, honor, and cherish, forsaking all others?
I do.
I do.
And now, by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you roommates. Go forth.
That's not the vow you took. But if struggles with CPAP have you and your spouse sleeping in separate rooms, it might be time to look into Inspire. Inspire works inside the body with just the click of a remote. That's right, just a button. No mask, no hose, just sleep. Inspire. Sleep apnea innovation.
Talk to your doctor to see if Inspire is right for you. Review important safety information at inspiresleep.com.
If you see something, why do you say something?
I see safe for my friends.
For my community.
For everyone here. We all have something worth protecting, a why that unifies us. Report suspicious activity to local authorities. If you see something, say something.
KTSM AM El Paso is News Radio 690, an iHeart radio station. News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or over on our various social pages, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. We'll get into more of those comments and such. John Browson saying that Biden is formally going to be a hero to progressives and extremely left-wing Democrats when he appoints a black female Supreme Court justice. Again, that's part of the major news coming out today that I believe Breyer, if not mistaken, announced that he will be retiring, so that sets up certain things. Yes, there is speculation about a certain vice president being appointed to that, but White House downplaying that at this moment. I would be surprised if that were to continue on. But speaking of politics, we talk a lot about the big national stuff and how it affects us here, but really all politics is local politics is a persuasive phrase, because if it doesn't hit you where you live, you don't care about it, and if it hits you where you live, then there's local implications to it. So I got the chance to talk more about that with Orlando Sanchez, founder of Texas Latino Conservatives, who are bringing their training to town this weekend. First time that they've held this kind of thing in town that they're aware of anyway. I am as well. And the entire point of it is that, sure, the big national things are sexy to an extent. I mean, a lot of people are interested in talking about them. But then, of course, there's clearly a disconnect in our local area between just talking about the biggest stuff and then what really matters in a community. So they're here to talk about it in three kind of specific ways of thinking about it, but all around the idea of getting more involved and more active in the whole political system. So might be worth taking a look at it. So to talk more about that, I was able to interview him a little bit earlier today. So here is that interview. Enjoy. Joining me now, we have Orlando Sanchez, founder of Texas Latino Conservatives. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Good to be with you, Andrew, and all the good folks in El Paso.
Absolutely, because you all have a very important and interesting event that is coming up in our area. What is it that you all will be doing here a little bit later this week?
Well, essentially on Saturday, beginning in the morning about 9 a.m., of course, registration will be at 8 a.m., we hope to train a group of folks that are interested in becoming active in the conservative movement in the political process in Texas, and more specifically in El Paso County. So this is El Paso is one of the counties we have not held a training session in, and we will be there on Saturday.
Okay, so coming here on Saturday, presenting your Leadership Latino program and all of that. So what are some of the major components here? I mean, we talk a lot about activation and getting people involved. Clearly an issue in our area. How specifically are you addressing this and approaching it?
Well, we're addressing it at multi-levels. We recognize that not everyone that attends wants to be a candidate for office. But there is a need in the Republican Party and the conservative movement for Hispanics to be active in the local GOP if they want to have a voice. You know, we hear a lot from Hispanics that the GOP doesn't really address their issues. Well, the way to change that is to have more Hispanics with a local perspective in the party, because, you know, the precinct chairs become the are members of the executive committee of the 250 plus parties in Texas. And of course, that works its way up to the platform. So we want to get more conservative Latinos involved in the conservative movement across the state of Texas.
So true grassroots activation is what you're talking about here. And it seems like coming at this from a couple of ways, a grassroots activist and all that entails. I feel like grassroots gets thrown around a lot as, oh, this should be or is going to be grassroots. When you're actually talking about implementing that and getting people involved and activated that way, what does that look like? What are the things that you talk about?
Well, mostly from the political perspective, in terms of the conservative and Republican infrastructure, it's getting involved in the party itself. That's the best way to address the issues. But, you know, there are folks that want to get involved, maybe frustrated with the local school board. You know, A lot of parents don't know that most public government operations have a public session where you can go address the city council, go address the school board, address your commissioner's court. You can set appointments with your local elected officials. And so we want the conservatives to understand the parochial issues in the Latino community. I get a lot of Republicans and conservatives ask me, how do we get involved in the Hispanic community? The answer is listen to their issues, find out what their concerns are, and then let's bring a conservative solution to those problems.
So grassroots being part of this here, and in a lot of different ways, including, I will note, social media for part of our audiences, but also then about a couple other aspects you take on this as a political professional and as elected officials. Now, again, as you said, not all of this is a requirement that you then go on to do these things, but particularly on the political professional side of things, that is an avenue that, I mean, just at least in our community, probably doesn't get talked about that much. Again, we've got even more basic issues of just political involvement in general, but political professionals is an interesting thing to focus on. What are you all talking about there?
Well, we're talking about anything from as simple as a volunteer for a local candidate or a campaign manager, perhaps a press spokesperson for a local candidate. A lot of candidates have a hard time finding a bilingual press secretary or press contact. And so we encourage people to get involved in campaigns, get involved with the local party. And it can be from, attorneys that advise candidates. It can be a CPA that help them with filing with the Texas Ethics Commission, their C&Es, what we call contribution expenditure reports, campaign managers, fundraisers. There are very few Latino fundraisers in the conservative movement. So we talk about the entire political infrastructure and how to get involved.
And it is interesting because a phenomenon I feel like we have in our area is that if someone wants to get involved, they go straight to the top. We often have had many candidates, like half a dozen or more, end up running for some of the top local races, such as mayor, etc., from who are objectively political newcomers. This is not a wash on them, but they haven't been involved necessarily before in any other way. This is the first time they're running for any seat and have no other campaign experience. And that has always seemed a little bit funky to me as you're like skipping some steps, but haven't really figured out how to put it into words here. So if someone is looking to get maybe involved, if they're not ready totally for political office, or think that, yeah, maybe taking one of those steps is a bridge too far, this is kind of the interim and how you get really involved in the process, it seems to me.
That's absolutely correct. We encourage a lot of these folks. It's sort of like, to use a baseball analogy, building the farm team. You're not going to be the starting pitcher, in a big game for a major league team. You ought to start out at the farm team, maybe in San Antonio and El Paso or Dallas. And I tell these young folks all the time, there are plenty of community college trustee positions, school board positions, municipal utility districts. Along the Gulf Coast, there are positions with port authorities. And this is a great place to sort of get to understand the game. And then you can move forward, develop contacts, because to be mayor of a city or to be a state representative or a senator or a U.S. congressman or senator requires a substantial amount of money in terms of resources. And when you're new in the game, you don't have those contacts. So spend a lot of time developing your contacts so that when you do get ready to run for the next level, you have resources to go to and ask for financial contributions.
Again, if you're just joining us, guest right now is Orlando Sanchez, founder of Texas Latino Conservatives. They do have their event coming to town this week, January 29th, Saturday, at 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Registration at 8 p.m. at the Spring Hill Suites by Marriott at 7518 Remcon. If you want to find out any more about this, you can look them up at LeadershipLATINO.com. Find out information about this upcoming event. What do people need to know about what it takes to register?
Absolutely nothing. Just some spare time on Saturday. We ask that if you sign up, that you spend the entire day with us. We'll provide lunch. We'll provide coffee. There'll be breaks. But it's a pretty fast-paced class. A lot of the students afterwards tell us it's like drinking water out of a fire hose because we give them so much information. And we don't expect them to walk out being political experts, but we want to give them a flavor of what it is to be involved in the political process.
Real jump start to even thinking about this kind of issue, since again we have a significant lack of that in our community, but real jumper cables to the battery of this kind of thinking, it seems like.
Absolutely. This is a few people will come in, and we've done hundreds of these. We've trained hundreds of young people across the state of Texas, from Harlingen to Dallas, Bexar County, El Paso County, Harris County. And, some come in and say, this is too much. This is not what I want to do. But at least they got the information and they walk away with a good level of education in the political process. Others, for example, as you just mentioned, go right for the top. We have several Leadership Latino graduates that are running, and I'll give you an example. December of 2018, a young lady down in Harlingen by the name of Mayra Flores, the daughter of 2 Mexican immigrants, went through our leadership class and didn't know much about politics, but she was conservative. After that, she went on social media, had 40,000 followers, and last year announced she's running for the United States Congress down in Harlingen. Mayra Flores is one of our graduates. But some are running for Senate, some are running for state representative, and others, quite frankly, are running for the local city council. Our first executive director, for example, is very involved in the political process, and our second executive director, Michelle Gamboa, up in East Texas, is now running for city council in and around the Longview area. So this is what happens as a result of taking the class.
So who is the ones that are then helping to teach this? I mean, you all have your organization and come into this with the competencies to talk about this, but you also have people who are involved and have essentially followed through with these steps, kind of demonstrating and explaining how it works, right?
No question. I mean, I started my political career, Andrew, in 1992. I was a Republican nominee for the Texas House of Representatives. I became the first immigrant Latino ever elected citywide in the city of Houston. And then I went on to run for mayor of Houston, made the runoff twice. Unfortunately, I fell short. And then I went on to become the first immigrant Hispanic elected countywide in Harris County. I served 12 years as county treasurer. And then about 2017, I started thinking that the demographics in Texas were changing. And if we didn't start attracting more conservative Latinos, Hispanics, into the Republican Party, we were going to be a minority party. And so that's why we started the Political Action Committee. That's why we have Leadership Latino. And frankly, we've had tremendous success. We were real involved, just as a side note, with State Representative John Lujan. As you know, in the southern portion of Bexar County, we just elected a conservative Republican to a traditionally Democrat district. So that's what we're hoping to do, is to bring some conservative ideas and some conservative activism to El Paso.
Absolutely. Again, guest right now, Orlando Sanchez, founder of Texas Latino Conservatives. Again, their event coming up here January 29th, this coming Saturday. Find out all the information, LeadershipLATINO.com. So we got to take a quick break right now. So Orlando, coming back, let's talk more with you about the elected official training as well. We talked a lot about everything leading up to it. So let's get a little bit more into that, and then how that relates to issues we see here. So stay with us. We'll be right back after this break with more Talk El Paso. You're on News Radio 690 KTSM.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 News Update. A woman has now been arrested and accused of keeping a dog tied to a wrought iron window guard in Northeast El Paso. Officers arrested 46-year-old Lupe Amalia Rodriguez. Animal cruelty investigators became aware through social media posts at 10808 Onyx Stone Street on January 19th. The photos show the dog was tied by the neck to a window guard with an elastic-tied cord while precariously propped up on a box. The length of the cord was so short the dog likely would have choked had it stepped or fallen off. off. Investigators determined the dog was in that position for more than 10 hours. And Yelp's top 100 restaurants list of 2022 is out, and 2 El Paso restaurants and 1 in Las Cruces are on the list. DH Las Combe from Las Cruces, which is a winery and bistro, comes in at number 47. Nomi in El Paso, which is Asian fusion, comes in at 57. And The Kitchen at 150 Sunset comes in at 63 with its brunch menu. A Google search shows around 45% of customers check Yelp before visiting a business. I'm Erica Castillo with a KFOX 14 News Update.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, this is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. Well, it looks pretty good for tonight, just very cold as temperatures return to right at or even below freezing overnight. Our next bigger change arrives Thursday night, overnight into your Friday morning as a strong cold front moves in. It brings much colder air, dropping temperatures about 10 degrees, but it also brings some pretty strong winds, especially for the west side areas.
This report is sponsored by the new Mark Moss Show podcast. Want to learn more about cryptocurrency in the new year? Check out the Mark Moss Show podcast. Each week, Mark Moss, an investor, crypto expert, and host of the popular YouTube series, shares his knowledge as a true entrepreneur. Listen to the Mark Moss podcast on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
An unmitigated disaster at our southern border, and you will pay the full price. This is a full-blown crisis. It is a humanitarian crisis. It is a national security crisis. It is a health and safety for you and your family crisis.
Joe Biden's weak border policies have made America and Texas less safe. Take it from Brandon Judd, president of the National Border Patrol Council.
Joe Biden refuses to secure our southern border. He's crippled law enforcement and emboldened dangerous drug cartels, criminals, and human traffickers. That's why the National Border Patrol Council is proud to endorse Governor Greg Abbott for re-election. He deployed new resources to assist law enforcement, and he's cracked down on criminal activity. No other governor has done more to secure our border than Greg Abbott.
Vote on March 1st. Governor Greg Abbott, securing the future of Texas.
Political ad paid for by Texans for Greg Abbott.
The Tipping Point with Mike Tipton is coming back home to Fox Sports 1380, an iHeartMedia radio station, and the iHeartRadio app. Every Friday from 5 to 6 p.m. starting January 7th. Do you love sports, food, El Paso culture? Then this is the show for you. I'm Mike Tipton, and I'm inviting you to tune in to The Tipping Point with Mike Tipton on Fox Sports 1380, covering local, statewide, and national sports stories, news, and information that you want to talk about. The Tipping Point with Mike Tipton, Friday afternoons at 5 p.m. on Fox Sports 1380 and the iHeartRadio app.
Want to learn more about cryptocurrency in the new year? Check out the Mark Moss Show podcast. Each week, Mark Moss, an investor, crypto expert, and host of the popular YouTube series, shares his knowledge as a true entrepreneur. Listen to the Mark Moss podcast on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts. This report is sponsored by the new Mark Moss Show podcast.
Always just minutes away from the latest news around town and around the world.
It's important to know what's going on, especially around the world.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
From the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. Follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Welcome back here to Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk, joined here again by Orlando Sanchez, founder of Texas Latino Conservatives, with their training coming up in town here on Saturday, January 29th, so this week. So thank you very much for sticking around with us and talking further about these issues.
Good to be back.
Absolutely. So part of what we are talking about here and talked about in the first segment is the grassroots activist and the political professional training that you all are focused on and offering. But then the one that we've kind of circled around a bit is then the elected officials curriculum. Now, again, it's important to note that this is not the only focus or even the requirement you have, that you get this training, you have to then run. But the information that comes along with it is going to be useful to about just any level of anyone wanting to see more political discussions and movement happening in our area.
Yeah, right. I mean, some people come in just wanting to be volunteers in the political process. They may want to run for precinct chair, let's say, of El Paso Republican Party. Some may come in and want to be campaign managers. Maybe there's some young people that have a vision of becoming fundraisers in the political process or for nonprofits. But there are others, Andrew, that come in that say, I want to be mayor of El Paso. I want to be governor of Texas. And that's their focus. And so we have folks that have been in public life. I, for example, have run for the Texas House of Representatives, City Council in Houston, Mayor of Houston, and County Treasurer of Harris County. So I have some idea of running campaigns. There'll be others that have been candidates. And so we train these people with a vision of holding public office about what it takes to be a candidate, how to dress, how to speak, how to talk to a potential a donor to your campaign, how to address community issues, all of the necessary key elements of becoming a well-rounded candidate for office.
One interesting one that you also note there is basically connecting all the steps between intent and then results, essentially, including press packets, compliance, which is something we've been talking about lately with campaign finance reports coming out lately, but then just all of the steps that it takes here. We've had at least one person that has called in and said that even just the discussion about these issues has made them want to run for at least some office. So I take that as a personal victory. But when they come out of this, what would you say the kind of stance or standpoint that they have? What do they need to do from there if they truly want to then end up running for office?
Well, what they need to do from there is, of course, I always tell candidates, talk to your family. It's the most important thing you do is, you need to, because running for office takes a lot of time, and you're going to be away from the family, the wife, the children, the grandparents, so make sure you have a commitment from the family to support you. Without family support, it's not going to work. And then make sure that you talk to enough friends and family to help fund the initial campaign, and then from there move on to creating a budget and then creating the entire infrastructure and be committed. A lot of folks get disappointed if they don't win their first race. I will remind folks that I lost my first two races for office. I ran for state representative, fell short by a few percentage points. I ran for a local district city council position and fell short. My third attempt was a victory, and it was at large in the city of Houston. So you don't always win the first time, but remember, it's about building name ID. So I tell them that you have to stay committed to the cause. Even if you fall short the first time, stick with it.
One other issue that it seems like we encounter here a lot is about strong feelings about what should or shouldn't be happening in electoral politics, locally or otherwise, but then not necessarily a lot of action along with it. A phrase I have found persuasive that I came up with is that politics doesn't care about your feelings, that if you have a strong, this is going to work, but you haven't done anything about it, it's probably not going to work, because it takes that getting out, getting those connections, building that community network that a lot of people tend to overlook as the idea is the most important part. Sure, it's important to have an idea and a focus behind it, but you got to do the groundwork to then make these things turn into reality.
No question about it. And there are issues even in our own state. For example, there are those that are pro-life. How long have we been battling the pro-life issue? And we stick with it. You don't win the first time. You don't convince the crowd the first time, but you continue walking and talking and knocking doors and going to forums and addressing community groups about the issue that you're passionate about. It's a long haul. But, issues are not developed overnight, and issues don't become victorious overnight. You've got to have buy-in by the community. And in order to do that, you need to continue to speak to the community. And it's a long-term commitment, Andrew.
Absolutely. Again, guest right now, Orlando Sanchez, founder of Texas Latino Conservatives, the Leadership Latino class they have coming up this Saturday, January 29th at the Spring Hill Suites by Marriott El Paso at 7518 Remcon Circle. Class starts at 9 a.m., goes to 4 p.m., and registration opens at 8 a.m. that day. Again, LeadershipLATINO.com, where you can find all that information. So talking about even how we discuss issues here, there's, again, need a bat that I have this engraved on that we had 3.5% and 4.5% respectively in our last two elections, school board and Texas constitutional amendment elections. Not exactly small issues. So we have a serious lack of voter engagement in our area. Even in 2020, one of the more popularized and contentious elections of our lifetime, we barely broke 50% of registered voters here. So clearly issues, and one of the conversations we've had previously is around the idea of how you even come in and start talking with people in a community that may not have had many, if any, political thoughts in the past. And one of the conversations we had, particularly out of CPAC in Dallas, was that if you're coming into a community and the only things being talked about are national issues, I mean, those are important. And frankly, I'll take anyone's ability to be involved in politics these days, whatever your entry point is, great. But for the general public, if that's all that's being talked about, there's probably something a little bit askew and probably why you're seeing a bit of a disconnect. What is your experience when it comes into, as you're even just people coming out of these trainings, trying to then get with communities and do that, particularly grassroots activation? How does that even be done? How do you go about it?
Well, Andrew, you certainly have heard the term, all politics is local. And it couldn't be further from the truth. I'll give you an example. In Houston, where I live, for example, we have an issue. As you know, we're on the Gulf Coast, so there's a lot of trains that run from the Port of Houston inland. Unfortunately, one of the biggest train companies, Union Pacific, blocks major intersections. And what happens is, for example, near fire stations, ambulances can get stuck for hours. Unfortunately, we had a fatality of a young child because the ambulance couldn't get to him. Those are parochial issues. The community needs to know how to address that. They're complex issues, but those are issues that need to be addressed by the local leadership working with state leaders. And then, of course, because it is an interstate issue, working with your federal legislators, your senators, and your local congressmen. All issues are local. You know, when the garbage isn't picked up, that's a big deal. You don't care what's happening up on the Hill in Washington if your garbage is stacked up, if your water isn't running in your neighborhood. You know, that is a local issue. So those are the most important issues: the school board, the municipal utility district, the local police funding. Those are important issues. Are firefighters adequately equipped? Is there extrication equipment in your local firefighters' fire station so that when there's a traffic accident, they can get grandma out of the car? All politics is local.
Absolutely. I found that incredibly persuasive in my thinking and the way we even just discussed things on this program. But for those coming out of this, when wondering like, okay, sure, everything you said sounds important, but how do you go about then identifying that and then bringing that then to action? Because another problem we do seem to have is that there's a lot of people saying, oh, this needs to be done. In just my own personal experience within organizations is we should totally do this. And then when it comes to, okay, so then who's going to do it? Who's going to follow through, set the committee, do the work? And then the crickets start chirping. So getting past that, how do you address that?
Well, you just have to find folks that are passionate about the issue and have some, leadership skills. And that's why we do the seminar, is to give them the infrastructure knowledge of how to begin to lead, whether it's, again, as a candidate or as a precinct chair or as a volunteer, but getting involved in your community and bringing those issues to the front, to the fore. For example, I'm a taxpayer along the border. I have a house down in Kinney County, which is near Del Rio, Texas. And of course, as you know, all of us that are on the border have issues with immigration. Our communities are, being taxed. And I don't mean, pecuniarily, I mean, not tax dollars. But for example, in my own county, we have 2 ambulances in the county, 3 deputy sheriffs. And when there's a undocumented alien running from DPS or CBP, and there's a rollover, for example, our ambulances are gone because the nearest level 1 trauma center is San Antonio. So for hours, our county is left without an ambulance. That's a local issue. We need to address that. We need to make sure that there's EMS, that there's public safety officers available when our 2 deputy sheriffs are in San Antonio escorting our EMS units, and then we're left in the lurch. Those are local issues. I'm sure those issues are also in El Paso County.
I mean, it makes a lot of sense. So it's just kind of a method of looking around you and seeing what the issues are. Because again, it's often appealing and to a certain extent sexy, to put it away, to talk straight about the top of the level issues, the national ones. But you can use all of those. I mean, heck, what we do on this program is draw those down. What does it mean here? And so that's a good standpoint to then begin trying to figure out, okay, then what can we start putting on the ballot and putting up as issues? And it makes a lot of sense. And so this is the kind of stuff you'll be talking about during the training. Are there any other particular points that we maybe haven't addressed here that you want to mention about how this will work or what people will get out of it?
No, I think they're going to walk out with a basic infrastructure knowledge of the political process. In the Latino community, there's a lack of knowledge of how it works. and what conservatism is, because Latinos, for example, Hispanics are being fed a lot of misinformation from several large media outlets, and they believe that's the conservative movement, that's the Republican Party, which it is not. And so there's a disconnect, as you know, Andrew, because most Hispanics, we come from a very conservative background, whether it's religion, whether it's family, whether it's the work ethic, whether it's the inordinate number of young Latinos, Hispanics in Texas that serve in the United States military, in the Department of Homeland Security as Border Patrol officers. Again, I'm down in South Texas a lot, and most of our DPS troopers are Mexican Americans. And so we are conservative. We are law-abiding. You know, we are not for defunding our local police. We are for safe neighborhoods. We're for our children's ability to play and enjoy their neighborhood in their local park without, you know, it being drug infested and overrun. In certain communities, there's cantinas, for example, that are involved in sex trafficking and human trafficking. Those are local issues. It's a big issue in Harris County. I'm sure it exists in El Paso County, given your proximity to your neighbors down across the border. And so there are a lot of issues. What we want is Hispanics to understand that their issues are important to the conservatives, to the Republican Party of Texas, but we need them to step up and share those with us so that we together can work on local solutions. And that's what we hope, is that people that attend this seminar can walk out with an understanding of what it is that we can do to bring conservative solutions to local problems.
Again, guest right now has been Orlando Sanchez, founder of Texas Latino Conservatives. To find out anything about that training that is coming up this Saturday, January 29th at the Spring Hill Suites by Marriott El Paso at 7518 Remcon Circle. That goes from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Registration opens at 8 a.m. that day. You can go to LeadershipLATINO.com to find out all of that information, or again, show up and be ready to participate and getting all this done. So, Orlando, thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us about this program, what you're bringing, and the impacts that it can have, and hopefully the results we will see in our region. I'm hoping against hope for double-digit turnout in our next election, but time will tell.
Well, thank you, Andrew. It's a pleasure to be with you, and I look forward to coming to El Paso. We'll be there Friday night. Let me just say, space is limited. It's filling up. And so please make sure that you go to LeadershipLATINO.com, and it's absolutely free. There's no charge. So we hope to see you on Saturday over at the Spring Hill Suites. And thank you so much for inviting me to be on your great program.
Nope, absolutely. This is something I talk about when we don't even have a guest, so happy to do so. So we got to take that break right now. Coming out of the break, we'll have that phone line open as well, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back in a minute with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
If you're headed out on the I-10 eastbound between Campbell downtown and Copia Street, it's about a 5-minute delay. I-10 westbound between McRae and Reynolds, about 35 to 40 miles per hour in there. I-10 westbound between Wrestler up to Thorne, it's slow and go traffic. Hawkins Boulevard north of Viscount at McFall Drive, watch for an injury accident there. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by the new Mark Moss Show podcast. Want to learn more about cryptocurrency in the new year? Check out the Mark Moss Show podcast. Each week, Mark Moss, an investor, crypto expert, and host of the popular YouTube series, shares his knowledge as a true entrepreneur. Listen to the Mark Moss podcast on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Happy New Year, El Paso. This is Ivan Ochoa. Happy New Year, El Paso. This is Ivan Ochoa, General Manager from Southern Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat. Thank you, El Paso and surrounding areas, for helping us have a record-breaking year. As a gesture of gratitude, we're offering 0 down, 0 APR for 72 months, no payments for 90 days, and exceptional trade-in offers for any trade.
Keep your cash and save thousands with record-breaking price cuts during the Start Something New sales event going on now at Southern Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat. 2022 Ram trucks, huge selection, huge savings. Save thousands $1,000 in interest with 0 APR for 72 months on 2021 Jeep Grand Cherokees, Dodge Charger, and Durango SUVs. Looking to save thousands on your next car, truck, or SUV? The all-new Sullivan Park Dodge Certified Pre-Owned Supercenter has a great selection with more arriving daily. All military personnel and all first responders receive an additional discount. Thank you for your service. Sullivan Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. We're buying a car. It's still fun at I-10 at Sullivan Park Drive or online at SullivanParkDodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina El Paso strong. Includes factory rebate and dealer discount plus TTNL. 0 APR is $13.89 per thousand finance. All select vehicles with approved credit. Offers not combined.
iHeartRadio Earth knows small changes make a big difference for the environment. Did you know that keeping your tires even a single PSI lower than recommended means worse mileage and more trips to the pump? So do the environment and your wallet a favor and always check the tire pressure. Brought to you by iHeartRadio Earth and the National Environmental Education Foundation. To find more tips on smarter, sustainable living or to take action in your own community, go to iHeartRadio.com/Earth.
Now may be the perfect time to buy a home financed by Loan Depot. Loan Depot has over 300 loan products to help you make home ownership a reality. Interest rates are near historic lows. Rates will not stay low forever. So call 866-888-LOAN so one of our thousands of loan officers can help you find the right loan. Call 866-888-LOAN or visit loandepot.com. Loan Depot. Rates are subject to change. Equal housing opportunity lender. NMLS number 174457. Licensed in all 50 states.
Want to learn more about cryptocurrency in the new year? Check out the Mark Moss Show podcast. Each week, Mark Moss, an investor, crypto expert, and host of the popular YouTube series, shares his knowledge as a true entrepreneur. Listen to the Mark Moss podcast on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the social pages. Again, thank you to our guest talking about the Texas Latino conservatives. I know it's a conservative movement particularly, but frankly, at this point, I'm in favor of anything that'll get people more involved with the process here. Again, preaching to the choir a little bit, since we are, if you're listening to the station, you're probably pretty involved, but happy to talk about it any way it comes up. So again, that is happening this Saturday. If you want to find out more information, Spring Hill Suites over on RemCon, if you just want to show up, but it might make sense to reserve a spot if you're into that kind of thing. So LeadershipLATINO.com, the website to do that one last time here. We're talking about a lot of stuff here today. John Browse didn't quite, a little bit of a non sequitur, saying needs to mow his grass again, gotten 2 feet high. Hope the weather is good. Well, if you heard during the bottom of the hour break there, we're looking at some very cold temperatures coming up here, but good luck with it. I'm sure you'll be fine. Just make good choices. Also discussion about free beer for elections. I kind of agree with it. We have a lot of breweries in town now, and I can imagine it'd be as simple as, right, bring in your voter registration card and bring in your I voted sticker, and we will give you a free beer. And then do like the ultraviolet stamp at the back of the hand, make sure that I got someone coming back for 5 beers or something like that. I think that someone should do that. I do think it would be a good thing. A lot of other people tuning in as well. Michael Patter's posting about that Canada, not quite blockade, but a lot more of it going on with truckers up there. Michael Patter's, Leroy Chuck, Ed Clore, and more. So a lot of stuff we're talking about here today, but I did amount to the phones are open, so we'll take at least one call here before we hit the end of the hour. Still taking calls through the second hour as well, but we do have Barbara on the west side here with us right now. Barbara, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Andrew. Thank you for taking my call.
Mm-hmm.
I was just calling to comment on a few things here. We all recall that last year we found out that the federal government, that the Biden administration was flying unaccompanied minors at night throughout the United States, thinking we wouldn't find out, but we did. And then secondly, they were ordered in August to implement the Remain in Mexico policy, and they slow-walked it and started in November.
Mm-hmm.
And the start was actually a joke. So you can't believe anything they're telling us. And now we're being told that Title 42 is being adhered to. But just last night there were reports, and there were actual clips of this in the news, where adult males, illegal that enter our country legally are being bused from Brownsville to Harlingen and being flown throughout the United States. And a few of them said, the report asked, where are you going to? One said Atlanta, the other one said Miami, and I don't know where the other one's going. But these are bus loads of adult males.
Mm-hmm.
What business do they have in the country? And what was most disturbing is those that don't have an ID, TSA is allowing them to board our planes with their arrest warrant papers. Now, if I see that happening, and I hope other people get bold and do it too, I want to know what he was arrested for. Did he murder? Is he a pedophile? Could he be a rapist? Is he sex trafficking? Is he a member of a gang? I think we as American citizens have a right to know who's boarding our airplanes. I don't want someone with an arrest warrant sitting free without a sheriff or a policeman monitoring him or accompanying him on his flight. That's just wrong. It's deceitful, and it's deplorable that the president would do that. And then now we heard a while back that there were no longer going to be any illegal immigrants traveling through Mexico. They were not going to be bused. They weren't going to be brought in by truck or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now we find out they're called ant groups, I guess. That's a specific way to get them through Mexico. Now they're being driven through Mexico. And what's worse is our tax dollar, because we fund the United Nations ultimately, they are getting debit cards. And some of them were reporting they get a debit card every 2 weeks, and the funds are renewed during their travel. So they get here to the United States, to our border. They're brought to the United States with our money. And then, this is my opinion. So they get here. I'm assuming they've been told where our welfare offices are, where WIC is at, where our food stamps are at, where the food banks are at, where our hospitals are at, where our schools are at. Because the United Nations just wipes their hands off at our border, and then our money continues to fund these illegal immigrants in our country.
Tell you what, we're going to have to leave it there for just a second here, Barbara, because we are out at the end of the hour here. So we got to hit that top of the hour's news. We'll talk more about this, so stay with us for just a second here on Talk El Paso. More after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Watch for an entry accident, Sun Valley Drive west of McCombs at Newport Drive. EMS on the scene there. I-10 eastbound between Artcraft and Red. It's stop-and-go traffic with 5-minute delays. Same on the westbound side of I-10, Wrestler to Thorne. And Loop 375 from the Gateway up to Pelicano. Got heavy traffic with about 5-10-minute delays. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
There's only one dental office in El Paso where beautiful, top-quality, long-lasting dental implants are very affordable. 1995implants.com. Other places charge $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, up to $6,000 per tooth. Please don't ever pay that much for dental implants. Instead, come to 1995implants.com. Our price includes the implant, abutment, and crown, plus a free consultation with the dentist, free standard x-rays, and convenient financing plans to fit your budget. With help from
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
Uncomfortable dentures. If you're ready for a brand new smile,
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. The Federal Reserve is leaving interest rates unchanged for now. The Fed signaled it will likely raise rates in March, the first hike in 3 years. Fed Chair Jerome Powell told reporters the overall economic outlook remains highly uncertain. Supreme Court Justice Stephen Breyer is retiring. The liberal justice was nominated by President Bill Clinton and has been on the court since 1994. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell told WHOP Radio the GOP's decision on possible support for the next nominee will come later.
The Majority Leader has indicated he'll move forward with the nomination through the committee, and we'll take a look at who the new nominee is and decide later whether or not to support.
The White House is being pressed about potential nominees. A reporter questioned Press Secretary Jen Psaki about whether President Biden would consider the vice president as a Supreme Court nominee. Biden previously has said he would appoint a black woman to the Supreme Court. 2 St. Louis police officers are hurt, one in critical condition after they were shot Wednesday afternoon. It happened in the suburb of Ferguson, just northwest of the city. St. Louis City Police Chief John Hayden says one officer in his 20s was shot in the abdomen and is in critical and unstable condition. The man who allegedly sold the gun used to take hostages at a Texas synagogue is under arrest. Lisa Taylor reports.
Henry Williams is facing a federal firearms charge. The Department of Justice says the sale happened at an intersection in South Dallas just 2 days before the terrorist attack. Williams told investigators that Malik Faisal Akram wanted the gun to intimidate someone who owed him money. He was caught thanks to an analysis of cell phone records. The pair exchanged several calls. I'm Lisa Taylor.
AT&T is pretty sure the Warner Media Discovery merger will be done this year. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. A fallen New York City police officer is saving lives even after his death. Lisa G. explains.
27-year-old Wilbert Mora, who was killed during a domestic call in Harlem, donated 5 of his organs, which went to help save 3 people in New York State and 2 more outside of New York. Mora was transferred to NYU Langone Hospital on Sunday, where a transplant team was stationed. Surgeons had 4 hours to get his heart beating in a new patient. Lisa G., New York.
Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin has established what's described as a tip line for parents. He's urging them to take advantage of a dedicated email address specifically for them to voice concerns about issues such as his executive order preventing schools from mandating masks. He says he wants to know about any divisive practices in schools and if students' fundamental rights are being violated. Georgia's Speaker of the House, David Ralston, is vowing to reform mental health treatment.
I am tired of telling desperate, hurting families that we have no treatment options available.
Ralston, in a rare move, is introducing a bill this session to revamp mental health treatment across the board, to readdress how the state offers services to families and how mental health is addressed by law enforcement.
Georgia is a great state. Passage of this landmark bill will also mean we are a good state.
One key component mentioned by Ralston is adding treatment facilities. Ralston says lack of treatment has led many families with little to no options. I'm Scott Kimbler.
Coca-Cola and Molson Coors are teaming up for a new line of alcoholic beverages. The 2 companies announced Coors will be launching the Simply Spiked Lemonade variety pack this summer. Simply Spiked Lemonade is set to be sold in 12-can variety packs as well as 24-ounce single cans. The flavors include strawberry lemonade, watermelon lemonade, blueberry lemonade, and classic lemonade. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
Now, your chance to win $1,000. Just enter this nationwide keyword on our website. Pay. That's pay. Enter it now.
This report is sponsored by Jackson Hewitt. Get your biggest refund guaranteed. Jackson Hewitt Tax Pros will help find thousands worth of new tax credits so you get every dollar you deserve. So why wait? Schedule an appointment with one of their tax pros and learn more at jacksonhewitt.com.
We've lost so many people to COVID. So many moms and dads, favorite uncles, older sisters, and best friends. But vaccines can help prevent severe illness and death from COVID. So now almost all COVID deaths are preventable. And so are the broken hearts they leave behind. We can do this. Find COVID vaccines near you at vaccines.gov. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
I'm John Gonzalez, the host of SI's new podcast, Sports Illustrated Weekly. Sports Illustrated has delivered some of the best storytelling in sports for 70 years. And now that continues on our show. Each week, we'll dive deep into the best stories from around the sports world. We'll ask the questions that we're all wondering and push for the answers we all want. Sports Illustrated Weekly is available every Wednesday on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe now.
Talk El Paso is going daily. Join host Andrew J. Polk weekdays at 4 with the Borderlands' only live local talk radio show, breaking down the impact of the news and taking your calls. That's Talk El Paso live Monday through Friday at 4 right here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Sponsorship and advertising opportunities are also available. To find out on how you can affordably reach an affluent and highly educated demographic, please call iHeartMedia at 915-351-5473. That's 915-351-5473.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you so much for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the social pages, including facebook.com/Talk El Paso, Twitter at Talk El Paso, Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, and Twitch, Andrew J. Polk. We're in all of these places because we want to have that conversation. We want to give you the chance to chime in and talk about these important issues that come from across the nation, around the globe, across town, even that close. But we need to discuss here because no one else is going to talk about it the way we're going to. A lot of people tuning in and chiming in right now. Ed Clore, Michael Perez, Leroy Chuck commenting on the news of the day to an extent. But with the Supreme Court Justice Breyer announcing his upcoming retirement. The exact timeline not fully set yet, but saying it's kind of we'll see what the fight comes up, as we heard from Mitch McConnell there at the top of the hour. But progressive judge for a progressive judge, so what? I mean, yeah, it's not going to exactly affect the balance of power. Expected not to. Who knows what'll happen? Weirder things have and can and do happen as well. But we are taking those phone calls. The number to do so, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Get to some of those pound 250 calls as well, because that's another way to leave a message. But continuing on here, we had to stop for the top of the hour to talk with Barbara. So quickly here, Barbara, welcome back. And we were talking about immigration and that ant operation, something I've been meaning to bring up. We've had previously on the show Todd Bensman with the Center for Immigration Studies. And yeah, his title of his recent work, Mexico's Duplicitous Ant Operation, moved tens of thousands to the U.S. border sight unseen and will again through 2022. So documenting that primarily on the Mexican side of things. But of course, we're seeing the impacts over here.
Yes, they're bringing approximately 25,000 per week on this ant operation, and one of the reasons I'm skeptical about, I'm frightened and I'm furious actually about these people getting on our airlines with arrest warrants. I mean, in Houston, they're searching for a man who gave a name that's not his name. They don't know who he is now that they're looking for, but they have a picture of him. I mean, this is crazy. Our world is turning upside down. And we need to stand up and start saying, hey, wait a minute, he's got an arrest warrant. He's not getting on my flight, and make a big deal about it. So they're deceiving us every single day. But I wanted to make a comment on Representative Cuellar. He doesn't know why they raided his office. I know. He's the only Democrat that I know of that's called the president on the carpet about illegal immigration. It's called it a crisis. It's had Mayorkas to his district, had a TV conference with him with other mayors, and he told them that they needed to do something about the crisis, and he's not only mentioned it once, but he's mentioned it twice. So the Democratic Party is going to crush their own if they're not towing the line for them. That's how I see it. And then yesterday, Raul, I think it was yesterday, said, does your vote matter? Well, that's an emphatic yes. That's why it's so important to get IDs when you go vote. I've been a election judge, and when a person walks in with an ID that's not their normal driver's license, you go on to another screen. It has the list of every single form that is acceptable to vote. And I was just reading now for the elections, the new laws. There's been some confusion, but the Secretary of State said that the mail-in ballots that trickle in, she said, are getting to the numbers that they normally do. So the laws we passed, the new laws, voter laws, have not affected that. But she said there was confusion because people don't know if they put their driver's license ID or their Social Security on the forms, and some people are sending forms in from 2020. So there hasn't been anything to prevent people from casting their ballot by mail. That's what I'm reading. So anyway, those are the things I wanted to call in about. But we need to start calling our representatives. This is not acceptable that they're allowing these men on these flights that they don't even know if that's their name. I mean, how can they endanger our lives that way? So easily, without even thought to who's on the plane. We may have our grandchild with us. We may have a baby with us. Then they have these people sitting next to us. That's just unacceptable without a marshal with them. I don't know.
I mean,
you just got to stand up and
it
scream.
It's a concerning situation. A comment that coming from Edgar Ortiz saying that not an arrest warrant, it's called the notice to appear papers that actually serves as a legal form of ID, saying that he doesn't like it, but that's the way it works. So some discussion going on about the actual paperwork being shown here, but
No, I'm going to dispute that. They specifically use the word arrest. They have a notice to appear. They know those are the ones they know. But those that do not have an ID are using their arrest papers.
Okay.
That's exactly what they said on the news yesterday. And that's when I just said, this has gone too far.
Fair enough. I mean, I would expect that there may be separate flights. What comes to mind, Michael Pata is also agreeing with that it is an arrest warrant, saying a little bit earlier, I believe I can find the comment here. A lot of comments going on over on our socials, but what has happened previously, anyway, is that going back to, say, 2014, when we were having the unaccompanied minor crisis, particularly in South Texas, we were seeing some processing happen in our area, primarily family units, because of the overwhelmed facilities in that place at that time. So there was some inside the country transport happening here. Now, whether that is exactly the case of what's going on there is, I can't say for sure, having not been privy to these details, but that is my inclination of what at least might be some of what's going on. But I mean, the whole situation is definitely concerning. I agree with you there.
Yeah, because these men are supposed to be turned back, and they're letting them in, and they're adults. I mean, I saw them go into being dropped off into these facilities there in Harlingen. This is just frightening.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll keep talking about that more, but thank you for the point in the call. Do appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. Getting more calls in line here. Again, that number to call, 915-544-5876-544-KTSM. Do have Tom on the west side here with us right now. Tom, thanks for joining us.
Andrew, thank you. Got a question about the Vote Latino conference or that event that's coming up on Saturday.
Yeah.
Do you have to be of Latin origin to go to it?
I mean, I think they want to activate Latino voters specifically. They've got the focus, but we asked him, what are the requirements? He says, show up. So I think it is open to anyone that is interested in these issues.
Okay, because I'd like to attend. I'm not of that background, but my wife is, and my grandchildren are.
You know what? If they say that you can't, give me a call back, because I'll be very interested to hear that, because my assumption, without having to answer that exact question, is that yeah, they will have, if they have room, because they said they were getting, since we've been talking about it on air and such, they were getting a lot of response, but that otherwise I would fully assume that they will be very happy to take you if they've got the room and you're interested in being involved in these issues.
Okay, great. The other thing I wanted to just bring up is Barbara's absolutely right about what's going on with regard to young men being moved into different means of transportation and then sent off from the border. I was on a company trip 5-6 years ago, and I still have photos on my cell phone of groups of 15, 20 young men that were grouped together that were obviously not American, and they were from probably Central America, and they were being guided by certain people onto a flight. And at this time, whoever was guiding it was specifically guarding them very well and not letting anybody ask them any questions or this or that. And then my wife, also doing business out of town, ran into the same thing. And I'm talking 2014, 2016, 2017. So this has been constant from Harlingen, from McAllen. If you go into San Antonio, you might run into it as well. Ran into it in El Paso as well. And I still have photos from the jetway of 3 or 4 young men looking back at me because I was taking video and pictures of them. And this is, so I've got my theory on who's driving this, but it has been a major problem for many, many years.
Yeah, I mean, we've been having transportation going in and around. Again, 2014, I remember specifically processing happening in our area, but even beyond that, it's been ramping up for sure, because, I mean, the numbers we saw, there was a year-over-year comparison of Decembers that we saw about 100,000 more encounters as the Border Patrol and CBP put it, just in December of 2021 compared to the previous year. So definitely a lot going on and a lot needing to be talked about it. So thank you for the point in the call. Do appreciate it.
Right. Okay. Thanks.
All right, sure thing. All right, we are due for that first break of this hour right now, so we do have that phone line open, talking about a lot of issues and a lot of stuff going on in and around our area and affecting us here. So if you're wanting to call in during the show, that number to do so is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso. You're on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Watch for an entry accident, Sun Valley Drive west of McCombs at Newport Drive. EMS on the scene there. I-10 eastbound between Artcraft and Red. It's stop-and-go traffic with 5-minute delays. Same on the westbound side of I-10, Wrestler to Thorn. And Loop 375 from the Gateway up to Pelicano. Got heavy traffic with about 5-10-minute delays. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Jackson Hewitt. Discover thousands of dollars in new tax credits and your biggest refund guaranteed with Jackson Hewitt. Schedule an appointment with one of their tax pros to get a head start on your taxes. Go to jacksonhewitt.com to learn more and find a location near you.
Take a trip back to Apartment 4D, home to the crew of the sitcom New Girl for 7 incredible seasons. On the Welcome to Our Show podcast, join real-life friends Zooey Deschanel, Hannah Simone, and Lamorne Morris as they rewatch their Emmy-nominated series.
At the end, when he says, you got some Schmidt on your face, I feel like I pitched that joke.
I believe that.
I feel like I did. I'm not 1,000%. I want to say that was, I tossed that one out.
Listen to Welcome to Our Show on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, Mario Courtney Lopez here. We know life's moments are definitely better together.
And Smart Mouth mouthwash gives us the confidence to always be ready to make the most of these moments.
Whether in studio, on the red carpet, or around the house, having the confidence to get close is amazing.
Our lives are better together with Smart Mouth. Just 2 rinses a day means fresh breath for 24 hours.
Find it at your favorite drug, grocery, or supercenter store, or save 20% at smartmouth.com/radio.
Always just minutes away from the latest news around town and around the world.
You need to know what's going on.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Happy New Year, El Paso. This is Ivan Ochoa, General Manager from Southern Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat. Thank you, El Paso and surrounding areas, for helping us have a record-breaking year. As a gesture of gratitude, we're offering 0 down, 0 APR for 72 months, no payments for 90 days, and exceptional trade-in offers for any trade.
Keep your cash and save thousands with record-breaking price cuts during the Start Something New sales event going on now at Southern Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat. 2022 Ram trucks, huge selection, huge savings. Save thousands in interest with 0 APR for 72 months on 2021 Jeep Grand Cherokees, Dodge Charger, and Durango SUVs. Looking to save thousands on your next car, truck, or SUV? The all-new Southern Park Dodge Certified Pre-Owned Supercenter has a great selection with more arriving daily. All military personnel and all first responders receive an additional discount. Thank you for your service. Southern Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat. Where buying a car is still fun. At I-10 at Southern Park Drive or online at southernparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina El Paso. El Paso Strong. Includes factory rebate and dealer discount plus TTNL. 0 APR is $13.89 per thousand finance. All select vehicles with approved credit. Offers not combined.
Freedom of speech lives here.
To me, freedom of speech is being able to say anything you want.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM. El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for joining us, however you may be doing so. A lot of ways that you can tune in, chime in, participate in the show. Particularly during this point, we do have those phone lines open, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. A lot of comments coming on here right now. Calvin Williams, Michael Perez, and more. Edgar Ortiz, Daddy Butler Torres. So a lot of conversation, particularly about immigration, but some of the focuses we've also got going on. John Browson a little bit earlier and Leroy Chuck. Focusing on some stuff actually going on the other border to our north. Issues going on with truckers in Canada protesting and not happy with the Canadian government's hold on, well, this whole pandemic situation and what they're requiring, and you could definitely see some impacts. If you got anything you're trying to build lately, good luck. Because a lot of lumber comes from Canada, along with a lot of other policies and particular products. But we are taking those calls, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. One thing I did want to mention before we end up moving on is of interest to me, and is I've worked with these people. Most specifically is that, just want to mention that the longtime general manager of KVIA TV, Channel 7, Kevin Lovell, has announced his retirement about May of this year, and there will be the current news director, Brenda Danda Swan, moving up into the general manager role to it. So having worked with both of them, congrats to Kevin for a long career and his retirement, and to Brenda for moving up into that position. So just had to make a quick mention there. Broadcast news as such, but having worked with these people feels appropriate to say. But again, get into those calls, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have Raul in the Northeast on the line here right now. Raul, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. You know, you can always count on the Republicans to bring up the immigration crisis every time they run for office. It's the xenophobes and the racists in the party that it whips them up. Let me tell you, it really gets them going. You know, now back in October of 2019, Newsweek had this headline. Ann Coulter, and we've all heard of Ann Coulter, right? She was a big time conservative, big time Trumper for a long time. She isn't anymore, and I guess she started turning back in 2019 when she suggested that Donald Trump should be charged for employing undocumented migrant workers. Now, what a hypocrite this guy is, you know. He demonizes these people, and yet he hires them for his own businesses.
Okay, as much as I love a good conversation about previous elected officials, you really don't agree that there is at least issues, or are you saying there's no problems when we're talking about border security and immigration right now?
No, I didn't say there is no problem. So I said that the Republicans make it a big issue every year. It's always been going on. There's always been illegal immigration. There's always been drugs coming over here. There's always been guns going over there. Come on, wake up.
But
Fill the coffee. You know?
Sure, but you're seriously not seeing any, maybe just slightly amplified problems this couple of past years?
Say again?
You're not seeing any change in that situation where they've gotten ever so slightly worse?
But you know, hey, these countries are suffering from U.S. policy, foreign policy of many years of getting in bed with dictators in support of the ruling elites, the descendants of Europeans who have these great big plantations and farms and ranchos, you know, haciendas, and it's been going on forever. And these people's lives are miserable, and they come over here, and it's been a constant flow of people here. Again, Donald Trump said he was going to round up and deport the 11 million illegal workers that were here, and he didn't do it. He's a hypocrite. He's a phony. Now, on another subject, all this works people up so that you got 1 in 3 Republicans saying that violence may be necessary to save the United States, according to a poll conducted by the Public Religion Research Institute. And in 2021, a national survey done by Zogby found that the plurality of Americans, 46%, believe a future civil war was likely. So this is where we're at. And we saw it happen at the Capitol because we had a man in there that was unwilling to accept his loss and whipped up his nuts to attack the Capitol. And he's going to pay a giant price for this. And he should, because that's traitorous what he did. It was insurrection, just as wrong as it could be. It's the biggest thing that's happened in my lifetime other than the Vietnam War. And maybe
okay, and that's where you keep losing me when you make that analogy here that, I mean, January 6th was not a great day of 2021 as it went down, but you're saying that things like, 9/11, September 11th weren't maybe ever so slightly bigger impacts, even if you don't think the event itself was bigger, which you are literally and absolute measurements wrong about, but the impact that came after that, I mean, come on, this is just beyond the pale of ridiculousness. If you're saying that there has been nothing else that has gone on I mean, the Vietnam War, yeah, that's a pretty good one within a lifetime to mention there. But the Iraq War, the Afghanistan War, invasion of Iraq, the entire situation we're seeing protracted on the border here, I think you make sometimes a point or two, and that's why I hope against hope that all our callers do. But when you keep going on about this very particular viewpoint that you've got, more than entitled to it, but just the way you're talking about it, you got to move on anyway, because it gets tiresome when we're doing the same treaded points. I will fully agree. Okay, getting to more calls on the line. That number to do so, 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. Have a call on the line right now. You're live with Talk El Paso. Who's this?
This is Andrew from the west side.
Hey there, Andrew. What's on your mind?
Yes, to respond to what Barbara said, the arrest warrant that she's referring to is an I-200, and that's a warrant for arrest issued by Homeland Security for immigration violations. I would agree with her. Yes, it is appalling that they do let these individuals on board an aircraft, because one does not know the criminal history of these individuals from their country of origin, and not all nations on the are signatories or participate in Interpol, and Mexico does not have access to the National Crime Information Center. So it is a concern also, because while you and I and other Texans had to conform to the Real ID Act. Remember that little star at the upper right-hand corner of your driver's license?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I had to jump through hoops, dig up my birth certificate, passport, and other documents, to prove who I was, and that I was living here legally in the United States. So, yes, it is cause for concern. Yes. Now, as for that Raul character, I would say, 9/11 was a big 9/11 was a pretty scary day for me. I don't know about him, but I choked the day that I saw those two Twin Towers fall. And the border crisis is worse, is even more worse than what it is. Even 2 years ago, even a year ago, it gets worse and worse by the month. These individuals that are being flown around the United States, given debit cards and given lodging. Who's supplying this? Okay, who's supplying this? I would tell those morons that are doing this, why don't you do the same thing and provide assistance to our veterans who are out there homeless. And I know a few veterans that are living on the street that are homeless and are struggling. Anyway, have a good day and a good afternoon.
No, sure thing. Thank you for the points and the call there. Yeah, again, I'm not saying that even investigating January 6th is a bad idea. Probably should be done, along with everything else that has been a crime-based nature that has gone on. Want them fully investigated and prosecuted to the full extent of the law. But then when you start saying, and that, therefore, it's the most significant thing, I can put up with a lot. I do put up with a lot, just in absolute terms. And there's just some things that because there has been no more defining moment of my life in my lifetime than was what changed ever since coming out of 9/11. So if you're just going to be, it just shows the focus and what is important whenever people bring it up in that kind of way and circumstance. So, we'll take the conversation. We'll continue to do so, but just gets tiresome sometimes. But we have a lot of good comments and commentary going on over on our social. Yeah, there's a whole lot of comments coming in about that. If you want to go and see it over on the social media, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, more than welcome to. Skeptic Squad alive and well, as usual. Due for that next break right now. Coming back from the break, we'll get to more calls on the line, so if you're there, stay there. But in the meantime, if you want to call in, that number to do so, 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 News Update. A woman has now been arrested and accused of keeping a dog tied to a wrought iron window guard in northeast El Paso. Officers arrested 46-year-old Lupe Amalia Rodriguez. Animal cruelty investigators became aware through social media posts at 10808 Onyx Stone Street on January 19th. The photos show the dog was tied by the neck to a window guard with an elastic-tied cord while precariously propped up on a box. The length of the cord was so short the dog likely would have choked had it stepped or fallen off. Investigators determined the dog was in that position for more than 10 hours. And Yelp's top 100 restaurants list of 2022 is out, and 2 El Paso restaurants and 1 in Las Cruces are on the list. DH Las Combe from Las Cruces, which is a winery and bistro, comes in at number 47. Nomi in El Paso, which is Asian fusion, comes in at 57. And The Kitchen at 150 Sunset comes in at 63 with its brunch menu. A Google search showed around 45% of customers check Yelp before visiting a business. I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 News Update.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Police are responding to an accident, Viscount Boulevard eastbound at Montwood. Injury accident, Sunset Drive at Doniphan, east of Doniphan, that is, at Osborne Drive. You're looking at 5 to 10 minute delays. I-10 eastbound between Campbell all the way to Copiah downtown. I-10 westbound between McRae and Reynolds. It's about 5-10 minute delays in there. And I-10 westbound from Wrestler up to Thorne, slow and go traffic. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, this is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. Well, it looks pretty good for tonight, just very cold as temperatures return to right at or even below freezing overnight. Our next bigger change arrives Thursday night, overnight into your Friday morning as a strong cold front moves in. It brings much colder air, dropping temperatures about 10 degrees, but it also brings some pretty strong winds, especially for the west side areas.
This report is sponsored by Audible. Make this the winter of you with Audible. Listen to the best of what you love, from comedy to wellness to the latest bestsellers. Find it all at Audible with audiobooks, exclusive originals, and popular podcasts. Start listening free when you sign up at audible.com.
Washington politicians are getting richer and richer. A report says Nancy Pelosi could be worth as much as $250 million. And Dr. Fauci just revealed he's worth over $10 million. Not bad for working in public service. If you're tired of the hypocrisy, you need to watch Stinchfield. He's on Newsmax every weekday at 8 p.m. Eastern, and everyone is tuning in. Grant Stinchfield exposes the Washington insiders in his series Hypocrites in America. He even names the hypocrites and reveals their secret agendas. You'll also see Michael Savage and Dick Morris giving their take on Stinchfield. So get Newsmax. It's on every major cable system. If your cable operator doesn't carry Newsmax, tell them you want it. Or watch Newsmax free on your smart TV, like Samsung, Vizio, or LG. And streaming on Pluto, Zumo, Roku, and more. Millions are turning off their old media for Newsmax, a trusted source. Watch Stinchfield tonight and find out why.
No family should lose someone they love to COVID because vaccines prevent more than 9 out of 10 COVID deaths. We can do this. Find vaccines near you at vaccines.gov. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. This report is paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
I adopted Bento in 2010 from a shelter. A lot of people know him as Keyboard Cat.
That's just one adoption story that started at a shelter. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so. A lot of ways to do so. We do have those phone lines open, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Get to a few more calls here. Doing that through the end of the hour, so more than welcome to. A lot of comments going on as well. Michael Pettis, Calvin Williams, Barbara Carrasco, Leroy Check, and more commenting over here recently. More comments go fast and furious over there. It's why I call it the Thunderdome of comments. Over on the Facebook page particularly, but we also got YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, all under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. If you wanted to tune in or chime in that way, interactivity is a good thing. We like it, and that's why we take those calls. We'll get to more of those here shortly. Martin Lopez Wilson saying, thanks to 690 for bringing local dialogue to the city. Hey, this is literally what I want to do. I can't imagine doing much of anything else, so if you appreciate it, so much the better. But we'll keep doing it 4 to 6 p.m. here Monday through Friday as we do here. So, getting to more of those calls, we do have Lydia calling in from the La Union area here. Lydia, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, sir. I want to share the fact that these illegal immigrants is not a Republican problem. It is a Democratic problem. Joe Biden stopped, reversed the stay in Mexico policy. So now we have 1,000 of illegal immigrants that were sent to Brownsville and put on a plane and then sent all over the United States on our money. But most of all, where I live in La Union, there's a fear constantly because we have the Border Patrol helicopters flying over, and 1 to 2 times a week, they're catching illegal immigrants in our little town out in the sand dunes, which are right behind our little town. So all of you El Paso Democrats that think it's a Republican problem, guess what, dudes? You caused the problem. And now the rest of us live in fear because you live in El Paso and you're not affected by it. Out in the periphery, we're affected by it. So don't blame the Republicans. We have a problem with people coming across because there's no border wall. Thank you, sir, for listening to my problem.
No, absolutely. Thank you for the point in the call there. I mean, I have not gotten, except outside of the political implications that come with it, not willing to describe this as a crisis. I mean, literally 2 million apprehensions last year. You're not going to say that that's a slight bit of a problem, even just from an enforcement standpoint. But then all of the logistical things that come with it, it's baffling that there's this whole, well, we're not going to call it a crisis. It's bad, but it's not a crisis. Like, come on, just let's talk about what's real, what is affecting here. So literally what we're around to do. So thank you very much for the point in the call. Yeah, I just, outside of politics, like I get it, but I don't get it. On a personal level, I don't get not mentioning it that way. But then when it comes to politics, I unfortunately get it all too readily because, yeah, it's Michael Bell is asking a good question. What are the ramifications for Biden ignoring SCOTUS rulings to enforce MPP? I don't know if that's come up yet, to be perfectly honest, because on the books, on the releases from the Department of Homeland Security and CBP specifically, saying that, yes, they have re-implemented it. That'll probably be the next thing that comes up here. I mean, we're on the forefront of this issue amongst many others in our region, so this is why it's important to talk about these things. I know there's been some discussion in the past, so particularly about, having compassion and concern about the people making the journey here. Sure, I am sure that there are people that have very good intentions behind doing this route and doing it. But from this side, from this perspective, what I am most concerned about is the fact that someone can just come across and it not be known and it not be logged and it not be understood about who these people are and what if that is a good intention or not. So when it comes down to it, what on actual immigration policy is room for debate, certainly, but there should not be any question about who is or isn't entering the country. Not in this point in time, not with the level of technology that is available. This is why I tend to support a little bit more of the idea of a virtual wall because information is key in this. But ultimately, all of that, physical or virtual, pales in comparison for the need for the manpower here. And so that's where I really come around to, yeah, it's a crisis because the literal amount of people that it takes to do this kind of enforcement action has been an issue for a long time now. And I think that is one of the more important focuses to look at here. But again, thank you for the point and call there. We have another call on the line again. That number to do so, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. You are live with Talk El Paso. Who's this?
Jerry.
Hey there, Jerry. What's on your mind?
Hi. Hey, just a reminder, 9/11 was caused by people that were undocumented here illegally without their visas being current, basically. So it could happen again if we don't watch out. The laws are there for a reason. Either we're going to be governed by laws or governed by men. It's up to you, America. You make the choice. Thank you. Bye.
No, sure thing. Thank you for the point of the call there. I mean, that's why it's important to discuss these things. And yeah, that is certainly a possibility with a large unsecured border that this could potentially happen. I mean, as much as I dislike the portrayal of El Paso, specifically within the movie, the one that is basically on Narcos. It's not called Narcos. It'll come to me here in a minute. It was a very dark portrayal of us. Then had the sequel to it. I'm blanking at the moment. In any case, there are possibilities that ignoring it and saying, nah, that wouldn't really happen is kind of how we ended up in 9/11 for sure, saying, nah, that wouldn't happen. I mean, before, September 10th, 2001, if you had said to, major national security experts, hey, could someone hijack a plane and drive it into a major metropolitan area's urban center? Someone said, yeah, probably, but I mean, it hasn't happened. It seems unlikely. A failure of imagination has usually been a part of what has happened and being leading up to then what is then seen as a tragedy, a major response, up to and including that September 11th, January 6th, if you really want to get into it, all of these things, they're possible. And if it's not being thought about and truly responded to, I mean, security theater is way too prevalent in our governmental response of it. Well, we're trying to make it look good. It looks good, so therefore it's fine, as opposed to, actually dealing with the issues. I mean, there's so much more we could get into with that locally, nationally, internationally, but we only got so much time in the day. Sicario, thank you. I must have been watching too much Netflix lately and looking at the Narcos show, but yeah, Sicario, absolutely the one we're talking about. Anyway, again, to at least a couple more calls before we end up in the next segment here. Again, the number to call 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. You have a call on the line here. You're live with Talk El Paso. Who's this?
It's Ben on the east side.
Hey there, Ben. What's on your mind?
I just wanted to find out, what can you tell me what's been the benign reasoning behind our medical authorities in El Paso saying we strongly continue recommending practicing prevention of COVID-19 with vaccination and non-pharmacological interventions. Non-pharmacological interventions.
We talked about this a little bit yesterday. Yeah, and I'm not getting a great answer about it, even looking at the statements that they're being made as opposed to just trying to address the curve, I guess. I think what it comes down to, again, my supposition, is that this comes down to a supply issue. Because literally, there are trials going on for pharmacological interventions, including ivermectin in our area, in other cities. Colorado comes to mind as another area that is hosting at least a trial study on that kind of a thing. But really, I think it comes down to supply. I mean, you trace almost any step throughout the entirety of this pandemic. It comes down to the advice being then driven by what is actually available and them maybe not being totally transparent with their thinking on it. I mean, again, masks straight from the beginning saying, well, you shouldn't wear them, and then coming, well, you should wear them, but just don't wear these because we need them, and that's why we said them at first. And that kind of reasoning has unfortunately continued on. So that's the best back of the hand, reading between the lines answer I've come up with about why they would be making these specific decisions, because frankly, I mean, monoclonal antibodies are basically not available anymore. I mean, Florida has closed down all of their clinics to go national about it. And the whole antiviral pill supposed to be around, still in very short supply. I mean, New Mexico getting a little bit apparently, but just not very available. So I think it comes down to, well, we don't have it, therefore we can't tell you to use it, in simple terms.
But Andrew, then you're saying the reason why they're saying not to practice prevention with, you can't do non-pharmacological interventions, you're saying that that's because they are as short of ivermectin here in El Paso?
I mean, there's a lot of other issues with ivermectin specifically, I'll grant you, but in general, I mean, because they're not even just saying, and don't take ivermectin, they're saying nothing.
What other things are in short supply? Hydroxychloroquine. I mean, my wife gets it every day, every month. It's not in short supply at all. If your doctor will give it to you. Scope is not in short supply. Povidone iodine nose sprays, not in short supply. Vitamin D, not in short supply. What are they recommending? Are you still supposed to, if you go down and get tested, you're supposed to test, if you test positive, you're supposed to go home, drink plenty of fluids, wait until you turn blue, and go into the hospital where they give you remdesivir, which will kill you, and dexamethasone, which doesn't have enough efficacy to do anything against any kind of a problem that is coming up in the side of your lungs. So, I mean, what is their recommendation? We're still stuck on testing and telling people to go in the hospital when you get sick. What can you tell me? What else am I supposed to do? What is the normal the normal person in El Paso supposed to do if they test positive for COVID-19, according to our medical experts in El Paso?
I mean, you basically just said it right there that, yeah, it seems a little bit muddy and unclear. I'm aware of some organizations in town that have just now been saying, hey, we're developing our own response and our requirements for it. But I mean, this is the muddle. I'll agree with you entirely that basically don't go to the hospital until you get sick enough to then need it, which, of course, early treatment, as we've talked at length about, is then kind of out the window at that point. So I don't think that we're past these supply issues is what it comes down to for me. I mean, again, there are other things that you mentioned, such as scope. I don't think those would be considered as pharmacological interventions. I just think that a lot of the stuff that has been driven across all of this, including up to now, has been from the supply side of what is actually available. What can we tell people to get? Because we tell them that, you know, imagine at the start of the pandemic, yeah, everyone go wear N95s, and then there were none available. And that kind of logic is carried through both the national and the local level. So I think we're all in the same boat that you're talking about there about confusion about it. But hoping it continues to improve. We're seeing rates drop in Texas at the very least, even if this variant does not appear to have been as severe when it comes to hospitalization. We've still been seeing a lot of full hospitals in our area. So, I mean, it's a good question. Testing seems to be down. Driving by the UTEP site on my way in today did seem to be very sparse as opposed to the around the campus line that it had been. But yeah, it's an ongoing issue. Fully agree with you. Absolutely. We got to take that next break right now. But coming back with the break, we'll close out the hour, get into more calls. We got them. Those pound 250 calls as well, and more comments. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Don't go anywhere.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
Police are responding to an accident, Viscount Boulevard eastbound at Montwood. Injury accident, Sunset Drive at Donovan, east of Donovan, that is, at Osborne Drive. You're looking at 5 to 10 minute delays. I-10 eastbound between Campbell all the way to Copiah downtown. I-10 westbound between McRae and Reynolds. It's about 5-10 minute delays in there. And I-10 westbound from Rustler up to Thorne, slow and go traffic. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Wendy's new hot and crispy fries. Right now at Wendy's, see why everyone is raving about their brand new fries. Natural cut, skin on with a hint of sea salt, and guaranteed to be hot and crispy or they'll replace them. You know, the way fries should be. Try Wendy's guaranteed hot and crispy fries today at participating U.S. Wendy's.
Embark on a deep dive into the case of the infamous Green River Killer on the Shadow Girls podcast. Join Carolyn Osorio as she re-examines the 20-year investigation of the brutal slayings of 49 young women, uncovering never-before-heard audio and a long-buried secret.
Imagine you're this young girl and you're on the street, a guy come up, you jump in, you drive off, you disappear into the night.
Listen to the Shadow Girls on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
When El Paso Children's Hospital first opened its doors in 2012, they forever changed pediatric healthcare in the region. More families stay in El Paso for specialty treatment instead of leaving town. More children have access to pediatric specialists. 7 pediatric specialty clinics help achieve the best possible outcomes. And there's so much more to come. El Paso Children's Hospital, celebrating 10 years of pediatric specialty care in the region. 10 years of wonder.
Susan, it's so great to finally be able to get together again. Oh, it sure is. And I really appreciate you picking up the bill. I'm happy to. I've got the extra cash. Since we've all been driving so much more again, I've been using Get Upside, the free gas app that pays you cash back for every gallon of gas you buy.
Wait a minute. Are you saying you actually get paid cash when you buy gas with the Get Upside app?
Yes, up to 25 cents a gallon. Cash back every time I buy gas.
Does that actually add up to anything?
Some months I make $200 to $300.
Wow, that's serious extra cash. I'm downloading the free Get Upside app now.
Download the free Get Upside app now in the App Store or Google Play to save up to 25 cents a gallon when you buy gas. Use promo code GOOD for a 25 cents a gallon bonus on your first tank. That's up to 50 cents a gallon on your next fill-up. You can cash out anytime to PayPal or an e-gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Get Upside app and use promo code GOOD for a 25 cents a gallon bonus on your first tank. That's code GOOD.
Because everyone deserves excellent medical care, El Paso has its own free community medical clinic. RotoCare is a free walk-in clinic located at 301 South Schutz Drive and is devoted to improving the health of all El Pasoans, including those without insurance or legal documentation. RotoCare is open most Saturdays from 9 a.m. to noon. For more information, call 790-0700. RotoCare, because everyone deserves excellent medical care.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk, rounding the bend on the final bit of our second hour of the show, 4 to 6 p.m. as we are these days. A lot of comments still going on. Skeptic Squad kicking it out today. If you want to go and find it over on our social pages, facebook.com/Talk El Paso. The main one, that's the Thunderdome of comments for sure. So if you're going to wade in there, forewarned is forearmed. But there's a lot more that we'll get to and be working on for you. Again, we're going to be talking more with candidates as we get closer to the election. Probably kicking that off in February. I know we've got some questions coming up on it. But we've had a decent amount of focus on the election, but I think it'll really kick into high gear once we get past the primaries. That's my supposition anyway, because then the fights will be clear. Even though we've got some elections that are going to be decided with the primary, which is sad. Always makes you a little bit sad that there's just not an opponent running in some of these races locally. But I don't want to get up on my soapbox right now. A lot of comments going on here. We had, going back to it here, had a good one here. Calvin Williams saying there are things you can and cannot predict, but to stop being proactive in your approach to governing is a path to failure. Absolutely. Again, the failure of imagination on a lot of these issues has been pretty significant. And murals coming up again as well. Yeah, maybe we should put up a campaign about free beer for voters and put it on a mural around town. Yeah, I'm sure that would work well as well. I mean, there's a lot of issues going on, a lot of things we got to deal with. Just some of the ones we've been focusing on here today are, again, I mean, the COVID response dominates everything. It's not even like a specific topic we need to bring up. But there have been others, including supply chain issues, the whole protest, and, okay, not quite blockade. Again, it's been a little bit hard to track down what is going on in Canada with truckers saying that, no, we are not happy with the regulations. And I didn't misspeak earlier, but I didn't portray the whole situation, that they're protesting vaccine mandates essentially on both sides of the border, because the U.S. has its own, as we've discussed, happening in our area, as it implemented over this past weekend, requiring non-residents, essentially, trying to enter the country to do so with full vaccination and proof of such, along with certain assertions being made. But Canada has a very similar kind of restriction. Very specifically, anyone crossing the border, even if they're residents going back into Canada, being required to be vaccinated, not even tested. So a little bit even further than some of the stuff that have been being discussed for U.S. residents, and that leading to some estimates of tens of thousands of truckers in Canada unhappy with that and protesting and taking that protest to their federal government, the seat of government. So that going on and those implications, I mean, the supply chain issues aren't going to get better particularly anytime soon. Or I think we're past smart, simple solutions to these issues and looking at serious overhauls of systems. So stock up on what you like. You might not know when you get it again. I don't think we're going to see like, oh, there is no food available in stores in the near term, because there has not been at any particular time over these past 3 years, even now, really, when I've said, oh, I know exactly what's going to happen next. It has always defied predictions just enough, even when things could be figured out. The Kevin Williams reminding everyone that if there's no challenger to write his name in, Don't think that's how it works, but hey, if it works out for you, we charge campaign consultancy fees by the hour and a whole lot more comments. We'll do it again tomorrow, 4 to 6 p.m. as we do. And, of course, we got Friday coming up. Did have one of those pound 250 calls as well. That's a way you can leave us a message day or night, whether we're on air or not, by dialing pound 250 on your cell phone, saying the keyword Talk El Paso, and then leaving your message like this.
This is Messiah Frankie. I want to take total umbrage in your comment of my comment about Tony's comment about the riot stuff, where you said that the riots are about burning the cities down and this insurrection stuff on January the 6th are the same. No, they are not. And I'll give you a real simple circumstance on this, Andrew. You burn a city down, you still got a country. You burn the country down, you got nothing. So there is no equating the two, Andrew. There is absolutely not. No way, Jose, no way. None. Zero.
Again, to leave your own message, pound 250, say the keyword Talk El Paso. I am not by any means the most eloquent speaker out there, but I'd like to think that I choose my words decently, carefully. And no, I don't believe in an equivalence between what happened January 6th and the riots that we saw over the summer. But what I did say is that both sets of circumstances should be fully investigated and everyone responsible held accountable. I do not believe that should be a controversial statement, and in no way does that mean that they are equivalent situations. I would say the same thing about a shoplifter and a grand theft murder suspect, that they should probably be fully investigated totally because that's how rule of law works. But maybe that's just me. I mean, there's enough questions about both of these circumstances and people needing to be held accountable that I think they should both be fully investigated. Would you not agree? But no, this does not mean that they were on the same even order of magnitude. Frankly, the latter, the riots, were a little bit more of an order of magnitude of seriousness of what it means for individual. I mean, sure, burning down a city, horrific on its face. Just got to say that real quick. But, you know what? I can't even get through it here. We're out of time here for this show. Thank everyone who tune in, call in, participate in all of this. We'll get to more of it here, 4 to 6 p.m., Monday through Friday, as we do here on Talk El Paso. Thanks everyone who tune in. Your help will make this show what it is. Stay safe out there. Look twice for motorcycles when out on the road, and have a great evening, y'all. See y'all tomorrow.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 eastbound between the downtown exits, Campbell Street, all the way over to Copia. That's a 5 to 10 minute delay. I-10 between Airway and Lee Trevino, you're slowing down to about 30 miles per hour there. Kenworthy between Lucy Drive and the 54 Gateway. Police are responding to an accident there at Pleasant Hill and Kenworthy. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Happy New Year, El Paso. This is Ivan Ochoa, General Manager from Sunland Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat. Thank you, El Paso and surrounding areas, for helping us have a record-breaking year. As a gesture of gratitude, we're offering 0 down, 0 APR for 72 months, no payments for 90 days, and exceptional trade-in offers for any trade.
Keep your cash and save thousands with record-breaking price cuts during the Start Something New sales event going on now at Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. 2022 Ram trucks, huge selection, huge savings. Save thousands in interest with 0 APR for 72 months on 2021 Jeep Grand Cherokees, Dodge Charger, and Durango SUVs. Looking to save thousands on your next car, truck, or SUV? The all-new Sunland Park Dodge Certified Pre-Owned Super Center has a great selection with more arriving daily. All military personnel and all first responders receive an additional discount. Thank you for your service. Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, or buying a car is still fun at I-10 at Sunland Park Drive or online at sunlandparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina, El Paso strong. Includes factory rebate and dealer discount plus TTNL. 0 APR is $13.89 per thousand finance. All select vehicles with approved credit. Offers not combined.
Portions of the following program were pre-recorded.
All right, class. Let's hear what everyone did this weekend. Jill?
Well, I raised my older sister to a big oak tree. It was at least 100 years old. My mom said I must have set a record or something. And then we went down by a stream and perched up on this huge rock and saw all of these little minnows swimming around way below us. And then I rescued my little brother from an evil slug king who was guarding him at the bush fortress. And my sister and I brought him back to our super twig fort for safety. And then we all laid out and told stories until it got dark. And the Big Dipper led us all the way home.
Wow. Awesome. Where were you, Jill?
Yeah. We went to the forest. It's not that far away. Anyone want to come this weekend?
Ask your parents to take you and your friends to the forest this week
and find the fun, adventurous you. It's closer than you think. Check out discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
News on the hour and the half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. President Biden's Supreme Court nominee will have a speedy confirmation process following Justice Stephen Breyer's expected retirement. That's according to Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer.
In the Senate, we want to be deliberate. We want to move quickly. We want to get this done.
He added he intended to give the nominee a prompt hearing and have them considered and confirmed by the Senate with deliberate speed. He said that the U.S. owes Breyer an enormous debt of gratitude. The Federal Reserve is leaving interest rates unchanged for now. The Fed signaled it will likely raise rates in March, the first hike in 3 years. Rate hikes are seen as a response to rising inflation. Fed Chair Jerome Powell told reporters the national economy continues to show great strength and resilience during the ongoing COVID pandemic. The White House says Russia has a boundless capacity to misrepresent the truth. Press Secretary Jen Psaki said the U.S. has federal agencies working together to correct disinformation related to Russia's tense situation with Ukraine. She said the Biden administration is working to be clear with the global community about what Russia is doing and that much of what the country is conveying publicly is misinformation. 2 St. Louis police officers are hurt, one in critical condition after they were shot Wednesday afternoon. It happened in the suburb of Ferguson, just northwest of the city.
One of our officers was struck in the leg, and the other officer was struck in the abdomen. The officer that was struck in the abdomen is in very critical, very unstable condition. They are still working on him as we speak.
St. Louis Police Chief John Hayden added that 4 suspects have been taken into custody. The officers were reportedly trying to apprehend a suspect wanted in connection to a homicide Tuesday night when they were shot. Rent prices are continuing to trend upwards across the U.S. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson faces another pivotal day as the publication of an investigation into alleged parties in and around Downing Street during coronavirus lockdowns is released. Benji.